Jennifer Verdi, a young woman with no interest in love, who has just bought her first house and spent all her savings on the down payment. Shortly thereafter, all of her belongings are stolen. Vince is a ladies' man and a gambler, who is down on his luck and owes a large debt to a man named the Monkey. As fate would have it, they are seated next to each other when they attend a wedding. They both are in awe on how much cash and gifts a bride and groom get, and begin thinking about how easy it would be to get their lives back on track with that kind of income. A week later they meet for lunch and stage a fake romance and engagement. In the beginning it's just a simple lie they tell their family and friends, but as time goes on, and Vince begins to grow on both her and her family, the lie becomes increasingly harder to sustain. Both Jennifer and Vince are put to the test a few times throughout the film, such as when Vince goes to Gamblers Anonymous and meets a beautiful young woman. He walks her home and she invites him upstairs to her room, but Vince refuses and stays the night at his mother's house. The next morning he tells Jennifer that he is sorry he had stayed out all night, but she claims to not care. That is until they begin to get into a small argument and she reveals her true jealousy over the incident. As the argument begins to escalate, Jennifer receives a phone call from the local hospital with news that her sister had just been in a car accident. She and Vince rush to the hospital where Jennifer makes a heartfelt confession to a woman wrapped in bandages, in a coma, and asks her to be the maid of honor at her wedding. Her sister accepts, but from behind her, and Jennifer realizes she has been talking to the wrong person the entire time. When her brother-in-law decides to sleep over at the hospital, Jennifer agrees to take their 2 children for the night. As the day progresses, Jennifer finds herself noticing how well Vince does with the kids. That is until nighttime when the young boy asks Vince when they'll get to go home, and Vince, trying to make a joke, replies, "Never." At which point the young boy starts to scream and Jennifer comes to calm him down and has the boy tell her a bedtime story. After the kids have fallen asleep, Vince goes to sleep in Jennifer's room on an air mattress which springs a leak, and she invites him to sleep on top of the covers on her bed, but the two just can't keep their hand off each other. And if you have come this far in the video, please subscribe to this channel to never miss amazing content like this. Just as they are really getting into it, they hear a knock on the door and Jennifer's niece announces she doesn't feel well, and vomits on the ground. The young boy then reveals to Vince that he won't be going to college, because all of his and his sister's college money is being used to pay for the wedding. Vince realizes that this has gone too far and goes to see his father, who had recently hit it big at the racetrack, and owed Vince some money. Vince's father writes him a check for a large amount of money, and instead of paying off his loan to the Monkey, he uses the money to finance the wedding, telling the kids, "Looks like you're gonna have to go to college after all." With Jennifer's feelings beginning to become confused, she begins to feel the weight of how important her marriage actually is to her family. At the wedding rehearsal, Jennifer's sister gives a heartfelt speech which drives Jennifer to leave the room and confess to Vince that she can't go through with this, and can't marry a man who doesn't love her. Vince then reminds her of all that's at stake and she reluctantly agrees to go through with the wedding. The next day at their wedding, Jennifer's sister comes in and gives Vince the wedding vows that she had written for him. Vince then writes her wedding vows and gives them to the sister. As Vince and the groomsmen wait for Jennifer, she speaks with her father and tries to tell him that it's all a hoax, and she can't go through with it, but her father keeps interrupting her and tells her how much he loves who she is and how he knows Vince will be a great husband. She reluctantly walks down the aisle and the preacher begins the sermon. As the preacher speaks, he talks about why 2 people get married, and when he mentions, "Some do it for all the gifts," the two look at each other and laugh nervously while the rest of the congregation is laughing. When the preacher gives them a chance to read the vows, Vince begins to read the vows she wrote for him, but tears them up and speaks from the heart instead, which culminates in him telling her he really does love her. As she begins to read his written vows, Vince drops to one knee and we see that he had written, "Will you marry me for real?" After she gives a heartfelt vow, she agrees and the two begin getting close as the preacher tries to continue the ceremony. It then ends with Jennifer and Vince dancing, and Jennifer saying, "I love you, Vince." I hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know in the comment section below which movie you want us to recap next. As always, until the next time.